Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about Pokemon Legends EA and how it could connect to Scarlet and Violet. Now, to clarify, we don't know that these games will have any connections, but I imagine there will at least be some references and some kind of, like, even if it's just a glorified Easter egg, some kind of connection between these games, similar to how in Legends Arceus we do have things like Laventon being from the Galar region, and referencing things like that with him referencing Copperajah and Raichu's Dex entry, and also there being a Galarian Wheezing on the Galaxy Expedition building, I think that's what it's called. But yeah, you get the idea. Will that be the case in these games? I don't know, but I think there could be. Let's jump right in with the biggest one, the one that everyone's talking about, and that is how close the Kalos and Paldea region probably are. Now, we don't know that they are. This is, a fictional world, so hypothetically, if they really want to, they could say that Kalos is, like, way over near Kanto and Johto and all this, I don't think they do that, but if you look at real-world geography, the Kalos region should be pretty close, if not neighbors, with the Paldea region. Just a question of if there is, like, a South Kalos region between the two. Now, this also, in my opinion, was hinted at in the Paldea region. When you're playing Scarlet and Violet, when you go to the northwest part of the, or northeast, part of the map, you will find these three trainers. They're clearly supposed to be tied together because one says, like, they're the Dragon's Wing, one says they're the Dragon's Fang, something like that. And these three trainers use a Dragalge, a Goodra, and a Noivern, which are the three dragons from Kalos minus Tyrantrum, who's not in Scarlet and Violet, and Zygarde, who is, of course, a legendary Pokemon. So them being in the northeast, which is right at the border of what would be Paldea and Kalos, makes me think this is kind of GameFreak's pseudo-confirmation that, yeah, Kalos is right there. I do think they are going by real-world geography. Just looking at past regions where, like, Kanto and Johto are neighbors, and Sinnoh is just a bit north of Johto with some area in between the two. That all lines up with real-world geography, so I'm imagining that's the case here as well. So the idea here is that we could get further confirmation of this by someone in the Kalos region. Perhaps someone in Lumio City just mentions, oh yeah, I just got here from Paldea. Did you know it's the next region over? Or maybe they even have a reference, like someone's like, oh, I came from a neighboring region, do you want to battle? And then maybe they use some Pokemon that can only be found in Paldea, like a, team with Spidops, Low-Kicks, and Rabsca or something, I think they really could do that. Another thing they could reference is Vivillon and the kind of connections between Paldea and Kalos that Vivillon has. So Vivillon is found in the Paldea Dex and also in the Kalos Dex. In Kalos, Vivillon, the form you catch is dependent on where you are in the real world. So, like, I'm over in the east coast of the United States, so I get this. I don't know the Vivillon pattern names off the top of my head, but it's the red Vivillon pattern. Whereas over in Japan, they'll get the purple one, or I think even the pink one. And yeah, but in Paldea, the only Vivillon pattern you can find is this pattern, which actually is not able to be found in any other region. So in Kalos, you can only get this pattern through a mystery gift that was given out. And that's kind of cool because it's like implying, yeah, because this form never lived in Kalos, it only lived in the neighboring region of Paldea. So I feel like they could do something there. I don't know, I doubt they'd do that, but I feel like they could. Maybe even, again, it's just someone saying, hey, I came from a neighboring region. I'll trade you this Vivillon for one of your Vivillon, and it happens to be that, as a kind of a pseudo-confirmation. One thing we see in the Kalos region is a mythical Pokemon called Diancie, and a Pokemon related to it called Carbink. Now, the importance here is that we right now in Scarlet and Violet have the Terastal phenomenon, which uses crystallization. Area Zero is covered in crystals. Terapagos deals with crystals, and interestingly enough, in the underdepths of Area Zero, there's wild Carbink. You can also find them over at the Crystal Pool in the Kitakami region. So this kind of tying Carbink to Terastal, perhaps they could go further with that, with tying Carbink and likewise Diancie to Terastal in the Paldea region, by giving us that confirmation in Kalos. I really think they could do something like that. I was a big champion of the theory that there'd be some kind of plot with Diancie and Carbink in Scarlet and Violet, because in the base game of Scarlet and Violet, while Diancie and Carbink are not a part of the Paldea Dex, you could, once home availability was a thing, you could transfer Diancie and Carbink in, which was really random for Carbink especially, because Carbink's a Pokemon that's not directly tied to Diancie, like in the same way that Manaphy and Fion are tied together. It's just tied together to it in lore. So the choice to not have Carbink in the Paldea Dex, but make it day one available to transfer in is, or day one of the home update at least, that's just such an interesting choice. And the fact that it is down there with the Underdepths of Area Zero, kind of one of the only wild Pokemon you can really find down there, it just, there's a lot to me that's pointing to this being some kind of pseudo confirmation that Carbink and Diancie have a tie to Terastal, and if they do, no shot they don't go into that a little bit more in a Kalos game like Legends ZA. There are some more potential ties to Paldea and stuff that they could confirm or hint at a little bit more in the Legends ZA game. So we do also have the Ultimate Weapon. The Ultimate Weapon is very crystalline in appearance. It actually looks to me just like one of the crystals in Area Zero, so you could form a connection there, even if it's something small like, oh, the Ultimate Weapon was made out of Terastal crystals or something like that. Both seem to be tied to Infinity Energy, so I wouldn't have a problem believing that. You do also have a theory with the Mega Evolutions and the Paradox Pokemon. I've actually done a whole theory video on this, and it's actually my biggest video, so that's kind of cool. But basically the theory here is that what Mega Evolution is pulling from a Pokemon's latent primal DNA. And then that would explain why Mega Salamence looks so similar to Roaring Moon, which is hypothetically what Salamence looked like millions of years ago, right? You should check out the whole theory on that because it's really good and I go into more detail. But they could confirm this by just outright saying, yeah, you know, Mega Evolution seems to be pulling from a Pokemon's primal latent DNA. And then perhaps even say a Paradox Pokemon called Roaring Moon kind of confirmed this to us. Maybe. I doubt they do that, but maybe. Lastly, we have, and I want to go ahead and admit this is kind of a looser string, but last one, we do have characters. So with Legends Arceus, we of course had plenty of ancestor characters. We don't, at the time of issuing this video out, we don't know if Legends EA is set in the past or the future or not, or even in the present day, but there is always the chance that it could have ancestors or even descendants. And now, with Hisui, we saw characters who were ancestors to people that had no relation to Sinnoh. Like, for example, you have Leon, who is an ancestor to Clay. There's clearly no kind of connection between Clay and Sinnoh before now. So it doesn't mean a lot, but we could see some small references to this, such as Salvatore, who is the language teacher in the Uva or Naranja Academy. He clearly is French in origin, or Kalosian in origin, because he talks French, uses French words. So you could kind of have, if it's present day, Salvatore appear, or if it's in the past, have Salvatore's ancestor appear. You know, that could be just kind of a small way to nod to it. There is also the fact that if this game is set in the past, we could see Heath appear. Heath, you know, is a character that's pretty prominent in Scarlet and Violet, and there's also some data mining stuff that suggests that at one point Heath was supposed to be an NPC in the game, so that's really interesting. Perhaps they've scrapped that role and put it in the Legends ZA game instead. You could also make the argument that with their time travel shenanigans, the AI Sada could pop up if this game is set in the past, though it's implied she went way further in the past, so I doubt that. Or that if it's set in the future, Turo could pop up. But again, I think he went way further in the future. Just didn't want to throw that out there because it is a possibility, right? Also, too, if this is set in the present day, we could have any characters from Paldea appear purely because, again, that close proximity these regions should have looking at real-world geography. But yeah, that's just some ways that I think Scarlet and Violet could connect to Pokemon Legends EA. I don't think it's going to be this drastic thing. I don't think it's going to be like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and X and Y, where the stories were very truly tied together and in a way Oris is kind of like a sequel to X and Y. I don't think it's going to be like that, but I do think we'll get small references on the same scale that we got them with Professor Laventon over in the Hisui region. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have any other ideas for how we could connect these two games? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that fun stuff. so you don't miss our future videos. And until next time, I'll see all of you later.